show, which happens to be The Last Kingdom lately. That's my new series I'm watching. Anyways, my name is Lani Lott, and I am president of LL Consulting, women-owned business, with over 20 years working in economic development and downtown revitalization, as well as I've been an advisor for the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center for 8 years. Worked with other small business development centers across Northern California at other times over the 20 years of having my consulting firm. And I'm primarily a generalist. I can assist with market research and business visibility. I do help pre-venture, startups, seasoned businesses, businesses that are looking at succession planning. And right now, a lot of my focus, of course, with many of our small businesses that are experiencing some impact from the pandemic is really looking at digital marketing, social media, branding, and promotional strategies. So I wanted to do this webinar because I work often up in Trinity County, which as well as down here in Redding, and they are, very up in Trinity County. They're very seasonal. They're very dependent upon 2 seasons to really support quite a bit of the small businesses that are based there, from their outdoor recreational tourism, as well as visitors traveling between the Redding area and making their way over to the coast. So I really thought this was something that is key. And many of our seasonal businesses right now, of course, are feeling great impact from the shelter in place and the constraints of traveling. And I am a consultant. I travel to the client, and I too am feeling those constraints with many of my clients not being able to have consultants travel in, and we're doing a lot of work through Zoom or webinars. But I wanted to kind of just let you know that I have 20 years of working with rural communities and urban communities across the state of California and pretty much all of through Southwest, really focusing a lot on tourist-based small downtown districts. And such a key piece of the community's economics is really made up of that. So tonight's, when I was putting this webinar together, tonight's agenda is going to include kind of a touch point, a refresher, overview of seasonal and tourist-based economies, some of the terms that we use, what it is. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the advantages of a seasonal tourism economy, as well as the disadvantages. And those relate more in general purposes, but it really kind of brings us down to then how do you reposition a seasonal tourist-based business or organization really due to COVID-19, some of strategies. And there might be some strategies that you've heard from other webinars that are just about business in general, but I'm really going to drill it down what you can think about and actually try to develop a plan, 3-month plan, 6-month plan, and 12-month plan strategy around helping you position your seasonal tourist-based business during these uncertain times. And of course, all of the impact that we had no control over. It wasn't by choice. It wasn't a slow climb like the Great Recession. It was literally practically within a week. Many of our consumer-based, many of our revenue streams were just shut down and stopped. So I'm right there with you. I feel your pain. So let's talk about a little bit about some of the terms, because that's key. And so this will be kind of an overview of the economy and the terms. So seasonality, when we talk about a seasonality in an economy or a seasonality in a community, it's the variation of demand on a given product or service according to the time or period of the year. So a seasonality for, like up in Weaverville, the summer and fall is their key tourist season, where the shoulder seasons or the slower seasons would be the winter and maybe the spring, where over in Tahoe, Lake Tahoe area, your seasonality maybe is different, where a lot of the ski resorts and businesses that support that visitor their seasonality is really more the winter and maybe into this, and then the summer, where their shoulder seasons could be the fall and more of the spring. So seasonality is that variation in demand of a given product or service. Seasonal economic fluctuations refer to the short movements in the economic indicators that generally follow a consistent pattern in each year. So I kind of just talked about that. For example, farm and fishing income may rise during the summer months when there's a lot of activity in those sectors. Up in Trinity County, the outdoor recreation is very high in the summer season and the fall, where they're rafting, where they're camping, where folks are coming in and enjoying a lot of the resorts. Down in Redding, you've got a little bit more of an even keel because the seasons aren't as drastic, but still your summer is where there's a lot of folks that may be traveling along Interstate 5 going up out into Oregon or coming across into the coast. And they may be stopping to see, obviously, some of your beautiful attractions that are in the Redding area, as well as the Redding has the river that flows through it and a lot of fishing, a lot of activities along that asset. So in retail inventories commonly rise during the fourth quarter or during the Christmas season. Or if you're in a seasonal tourist economy area, when you have all of your visitors coming into your town and you're a type of business that caters to that market, you will see a rise in making your revenue, making your money during the summer season, so that when the winter comes and there's less visitors coming to your area, you're able to sustain your business. So with that said, tourism means people traveling for fun. Now, there's a lot of different definitions out there for tourism, but some of them are like a thesis that someone wrote. But this one was really kind of like, when I was thinking about being a tourist myself, we're really traveling for fun. Now, you could be traveling for specific interest, like whether you're going to enjoy skiing, or you're going to go enjoy, like down in Napa, wine tasting and the food, or you're going on a trip up into the fall time into Vermont, where there's the colors. So there's a lot of different reasons that you may be traveling, but tourism means people having fun. And there's usually two elements that are involved with tourism: the journey to the destination and then the stay. So the point from when they leave their home, the journey to where they're going to be going, and then that stay or experience. People who travel for fun obviously are called tourists. And then places that people go for tourism is called tourism destinations. And a community can be a destination, or a specific asset or event or product can be a destination. So some of the terms that we use, and these I'm going to just want you to kind of have a background of this, because it's often some terms we hear when we're looking at trying to leverage maybe some of our opportunities that come with having a robust conference and visitors bureau like Shasta-Cascade, Winterland, or visitor center. And so some of these terms are thrown around when we are talking to those partners. So these are the three basic forms of tourism. There's domestic tourism, inbound tourism, and outbound tourism. And I'm going to keep these not international, but more regional and more statewide, so that makes sense to us. Because right now, even thinking about traveling out of the country, let alone out of the state of California, is not happening. So we want to kind of think it in closer terms to what really we're going to be seeing over the next year, with some of our target markets doing more traveling by car, closer to home, day trippers coming up from Redding or coming over from the coast. So domestic tourism refers to activities of a visitor within their country of residence and outside of their home. So for example, that could be Redding residents visiting Napa. So we're really kind of staying in our country, we're staying in our state, we're just visiting another county or another city. Inbound tourism refers to the activities of a visitor from outside of the country of residence. So people coming down from Oregon visiting California, or people coming over from Nevada to visit Lake Havasu, Arizona. I was on a call today with the state parks director of Arizona because, you know, we have a lot of state parks, and Lake Havasu, believe it or not, is one of our Arizona state parks. And they get visitors from the California side coming because the Colorado River's there. But then we're also seeing a huge influx of people coming down from Nevada to use the river. So that can be an example of inbound tourism. And then outbound tourism refers to the activities of a resident visitor outside of their country of residence. So this would be California is visiting outside of USA. Right now, not happening. Going to be a while, I think, until that happens, until the confidence level raises and we can really feel like we've have the pandemic under control, but that's outbound tourism. I know that for inbound tourism, that a lot of times last year when I was working with Trinity County Visitor Bureau, they were talking about, they were seeing some influx in Germans coming in, how they're discovering Trinity County, I don't know, but they are. And here in Arizona, we see a lot of Canadians that come down and then are crossing through Arizona down, making their way to Mexico to be able to go and enjoy some of the opportunities that are offered down there in Mexico. So tourism products and services, a lot. There is a lot. The industry is a whole as a whole survives because of various tourism products and services. And if you are engaged in this webinar tonight, as Rosa is, you may be one of these products or services, or offering one of these products and services, or being a sector that's involved in the hospitality services. So the products of tourism cannot be easily standardized, as they're created for customers of varied interests and demands. As the tourism products are mainly the tourist experience, they can be stored only in the tourism's memories. So I kind of broke these down as what we know as tourism products and services, and accommodations is right at the top. For the most part, counties and cities are looking for the revenue that comes from the transient occupancy tax, or the TOT as it's called in California. And that means heads in beds. So hotels are those primary generators of that TOT that goes back into the general fund, typically, to a county or a city or town, and then that is intended to be reinvested back into fostering and developing more TOT and enhancing the experience of the visitor. TOT is what funds typically your visitor centers, your conference and visitor bureaus, your chambers of commerce, if they act as your visitor outreach. Those are the types of organizations that usually take the TOT and then reinvest it in promoting and marketing the area as a tourist destination, right? But counties and cities will also use the TOT for public safety, for maybe some investment in the streets, some investments in maybe those type of services that really the residents and the public sector are responsible for, but the visitors also use them. So there is some justification there. So accommodations can be anything that a county or a city collects transient occupancy tax for. Motels and hotels, bed and breakfasts, Airbnbs, resorts, camping. Now, it's passed to the consumer. I know we have varying percentages across the state in terms of what each city or town charges for that TOT, and it's slapped right on there on your base rate, and then the TOT is part of what we're paying. The next level of important products or services is the hospitality sector, and that makes up the bed and beverages services, such as your pubs, your restaurants, your cafes. So those hospitality type of services where the people are staying, they want to eat and drink, they want to enjoy part of the flavor of the community. And I know when my husband and I travel, because my husband's a foodie, he loves to cook. Oh, I'm so blessed. I haven't had to cook in 15 years of marriage, and he's a great cook. But we're always looking at restaurants, looking at places where we could sample the wine, sample the food, some of those unique individual, just like the brewery that opened up in Trinity County, just like some of your independent restaurants in other communities and down in Shasta County. And of course, unfortunately, these are the non-essential businesses that have been closed, are slowly reopening, but are really feeling the impact greatly of not only being closed and not being able to serve the local community in the time when it may be not their season, but then not having the visitors traveling and stopping. So huge impact on the hospitality sector. Retail sector also bleeds over as tourism products and services. Retail can maybe adjust their model a little bit to include local servicing, but they really depend on the visitors coming through if they're in a visitor area or along a route where visitors are traveling or tourists are visiting. And those would be your gift shops, your boutiques, your souvenir shops. Olson Pottery up in Trinity County comes to mind. A few of your independent businesses down there in downtown Reading are key, especially the retail boutiques, those places that give a little bit, again, something that visitors can't find in their own hometowns. They can find a Home Depot and a Walmart easily, but they can't find that cute little boutique that just sells souvenirs about their visit, or one-of-a-kind type of maybe artistic galleries are sometimes grouped into this area. And we get into transport services, the rail, the road, the water, the air, and car rentals, how they're getting from one place to the other. Guided tours and tour guides are often considered products and services. Don't see so many of those. They're not as obvious in our rural communities. However, I do know that in the past there is fishing tours. There's tours of, if you want to go fly fishing and find that secret hole where those big trout are, that there are some of those type of guides. Rafting guides. Those are tourist guides that'll take you down the river. My nephew works for one in Oregon. Don't know why he does it. Scares me to death. I kind of like the rafting that goes along the Truckee River up there, where you get out and push your raft. But he's doing the full-on level 150 type of rafting. Tourist information centers. Everyone, these are key and very important as places where tourists can go and get additional information about the area. We all think everything is digital. Right now, a lot is digital because we can't get out and actually do in-person visiting. But the visitor centers are still key places where they answer questions, guide folks to specific areas, have lots of collateral, have virtual kiosks in place that promote the tourist visiting and visitor type businesses. Really that personal invitation and personal front of your business. So there's still a key product and service. And I always encourage communities that I work with, especially cities and towns, to reinvest in those type of centers, because they play a huge role in answering the 800 number, sending out packets of information, and being that point where we're very comfortable walking in and wanting to ask a question. Cultural services are products and services, those museums, those events, the cultural events, those type of galleries, and then sport and recreational activities. I mean, the list can go on and on and on, but I was trying to think about what's common up in our Northern California region. So rafting, boating, fishing, hiking, and skiing. For example, I ran Nevada County, California tourism for 3 years, and we worked very closely with San Francisco Travel. And they see a lot of, or they used to, they will again see a lot of visitors coming over from China or the Asian area because of San Francisco's history. And they come over and they visit the temples. We have one of those up in up in Trinity, Weaverville. But they come over, want to enjoy San Francisco, and then they want another experience. So we were working with Visit San Francisco to provide some additional one-day trips to come up to the gold country, because we're part of the Highway 49 gold experience, and that's very intriguing. And so we went down and met with Visit San Francisco so we could talk to them about what we had to offer. In Grass Valley, the Empire Mine is there, a lot of history in the mining. So that's how we kind of linked with some of the San Francisco tourists that they were pulling from international and then pulling them up into our region. Intangible products, those things you can't really feel and touch as much. Bookings of accommodations and various sites. We know they're happening, but we can't really, touch them or see them. They're part of a intangible product. The tourism's experience by visiting a destination, eating at a restaurant, or performing at an activity, enjoying a rafting trip, enjoying the botanical garden, enjoying walking around and seeing historic buildings, and then visiting a business that's within them. The experience is what people pay for. The products that I listed on the left-hand side are just supporting that experience. And then we have the tourist memory, which is created by storing the details of events and experiences on their visit. Oops, forgot to put a period there, sorry. The high degree of satisfaction or dissatisfaction is often stored in that long-term memory. And lately, since I've had a lot of time on my hands sitting around, I kind of, and not being able to probably take a vacation for a couple of years, I started thinking about my trip that I took to Europe way back, like maybe 35 years ago. And that experience is still etched in my mind as if it happened yesterday. And I recall going into Paris and seeing the Eiffel Tower lit up, and then going over to Switzerland and enjoying Lucerne where the beds were all fluffed up, and then going into Amsterdam and going into the red light district. So all of that is part of our memory, and that is part of our experience. And then transportation of tourists and their luggage from one place to another. A lot of times we're not touching that. We just see them, the tourist product may be when they land, they rent a car, but then we don't really see all those places that they touch along that way. Okay, enough of Tourism 101. So let's talk about the advantages of a seasonal economy driven by tourism. Of course, economically, don't have to really talk a lot about that. It brings in money. Seasonal economy and that is driven by tourism. It is often one of the 4 cylinders of a community's economic base. It doesn't get as much play as possibly a new huge manufacturing business that creates a lot of jobs and brings a lot of tax revenue in, may not get as much play as bringing the new Walmart in. But when you combine all of the sectors, all of the tourism products and services that bring into a community, it does bring in money. It does create jobs. And it's outside dollars that are coming from outside into your community. You're not losing dollars. Your dollars aren't being taken out. These are dollars that are coming in from outside sources, and they're being spent and invested in your community. And rural communities, especially up in more of our mountainous areas, or even down along the coast, down there in the Central Coast, where we see little Paso Robles, or we see Morro Bay, or we see even a couple of the smaller communities along those coastlines. Really key, tourism is very key for balancing their city's economic base. The income generated can make up a significant portion of both private, that means the private business, private sector, local and national incomes. more traffic for local businesses. Seasonal residents tend to be wealthier and spend more. And tourists are typically to spend more than the average consumer. And that's true. You know, we get all excited. We want to take that raft trip. We want to go wine tasting. We want to maybe take that bus tour. We want to maybe pay for going and seeing a performance at the Shasta-Cascade. All of those are tourism, outside dollars coming in that we're spending. It's opportunistic. It provides jobs, hotels, bars, transport, activities, shops, and restaurants all need staffing. Tourism can provide that much needed employment for people. And unfortunately, those hospitality type of jobs are the ones that we're seeing impacted right now, in terms of our non-essential businesses being closed or open, or being slow to open. Many of our bars and restaurants, they employ a lot of people. I am here in Arizona right now because that's where I have to be. And I'm working for my Arizona office. And, you know, all of the downtown and all of those independent restaurants, all of those people are on unemployment. So it is optimistic. You can, does create jobs. And when we combine the jobs, I have a slide in a minute, I'll show you the impact that tourism and visitorship does support a lot of jobs in both Shasta County and Trinity County, because that's who I pulled the facts down from. Infrastructural, the advantages of a seasonal economy driven by tourism, it provides a means and an incentive for investment in infrastructure, such as roads, rail networks, and local medical and educational facilities. Trinity County knows this firsthand by the realignment of Highway 299. It's been being realigned for a number of years. Hopefully it's done. And that impact was a disadvantage when they were realigning it, but now that it's open, we actually can get up from the Redding area up into Trinity County with under 40 minutes if there isn't any accidents or slides or rain or, unfortunately, pandemic. So infrastructurally, those seasonal driven businesses by tourism, those economies use those dollars, as I stated, whether it's from sales tax generated or from TOT, to reinvest back into the infrastructure so that the local community can benefit from that. Always benefit from that. Environmental, it can provide economic incentives for a place to preserve, maintain, and regenerate the environment, both in the urban and rural settings. Classic example of this, which is one that is probably in California, one of the best examples, is Old Town Sacramento. That whole area has been preserved and economically thriving, or was thriving, for visitors to come down. It's anchored by the Railroad Museum. You can come down and learn all about the railroad industry in California and how important it was. And then you actually can walk and see the Delta, the Sacramento River, and how important that was. And then all of the buildings have been reserved, and you actually are walking on wooden planks. And so it's preserved as an attraction, and there's lots of businesses that make their, support their family, have a huge job generation, and it's a huge tax revenue of TOT and sales tax for the city of Sacramento. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of those are closed because they're not essential, and then, but they are slowly opening up, and we will see a lot more folks coming to these kind of areas that are preserved, that environmental piece. And then the cross-cultural, it promotes international connections, which can bring more business and cultural collaborations in the long term. It also promotes cross-cultural awareness from both locals and tourists, and builds bridges of understanding between the culture. I know a couple of years ago, there was, when the state parks were being jeopardized to being closed from the Great Recession, that there was a huge movement to keep the Chinese temple open in Trinity County. And the locals came out and they pulled in from tourists that had visited that to keep it open with volunteers. It is a state park. It's a California state park. And so the threat to closing it became a local issue because it is part of their tourism strategy. It's one of their assets, and yet it's very key to the culture of our Chinese immigrants and folks to come and see the temple. So very cross-cultural. And then promotional, it puts a place on the map. Tourism gives the locality a chance to show itself off and raise its profile in the world. And we've all been to tourist towns, and some on the disadvantaged side, some locals don't like to have that called. Nevada City is one, and sometimes their host city, which is a population of 3,000, is their whole downtown area, their host city is on the National Register of Historic Places, has been for 30 plus years. And it is a place that draws lots of visitors from all over to come see the gold mining town and then visit the restaurants that are there or the wineries. And same for Grass Valley. Any of the communities along Highway 49 have a lot of the gold mine history, and they're promoted for that. And then what happens is it brings that visitor marketed in, which feeds into those hospitality type of products and services. So really a lot of advantages. And I'm going to move into the disadvantages. I did not add COVID-19 to this list, but it is buried in there, and we don't really need to chime a lot on that because we're going to do that the whole back end of the presentation. So here is the impact of tourism in Shasta and Trinity County. California, Visit California is the California's commission, tourism commission. And it is funded by a tax on top of rental cars. So every time anybody rents a car in California, they pay an extra fee or a tax, and that then goes back over to Visit California to then promote and reach out for visitorship, tourism, for all counties across state of California. And you can actually go in, they do, not only do they do a lot of promotion and marketing of key assets, but then they do a lot of research and trends. And they every year commission this economic impact with this fabulous company, Dean Ruman Associates, and they look at what is the direct travel spending in each county. They do it for general California and then each county. And you can go in and look at any county. And so for Shasta County in 2019, the direct travel spending supported 5,100 jobs. It generated 44.1 million in state and local tax revenue and 544.7 million in travel-related spending. That's a lot of money. Again, direct travel spending. This is outside dollars coming into Shasta County that supports that tax revenue, those jobs, and the travel-related spending. Trinity County, much smaller, supported 712 jobs, generated 3.7 million in state and local tax revenue, and 60.7 million in travel-related spending. So positive tourism is a key piece to all of these communities. And the travel-related spending, those are all of your products and services bunched together. So some of the disadvantages of a seasonal economic-driven economy by tourism. Seasonal economy driven by tourism. Sorry, I'm going to get a drink of water here. I love training. I love talking about this stuff, but the more I talk, the drier my mouth gets. So some of the disadvantages: environmental. very important on the advantage. But then again, if you are in an area that is pristine, outdoor, it can cause tourism and overuse of the area or the community or the asset, can cause environmental damage with risk of erosion, pollution, the loss of natural habitats, and forest fires. I don't want to talk about that, don't want to even think about that, but yes, we've seen that up in the Northern California time after time again, and just the impact of that. Even if tourists behave responsibly, the sheer number can cause damage. Ancient buildings, monuments, and temples often struggle to cope with increased traffic and can suffer from wear and tear. Reefs and other natural tourist attractions can suffer permanent damage. So we're always looking at the sensitivity to these natural habitats and the amount of tourism, the impact that tourism has on it. This is actually, if you linked on this, or I removed the link, but I was going to show it live, but I'm not going to tonight. But actually, Monterey County has on Visit Monterey County a place on how to enjoy the county with respect in terms of hiking, picking up your trash, sensitivity to the sea lions and the otters, sensitivity to the coastline. And it's very interesting because it was really one of the first that I've seen that really speaks out loud to the environmental aspects of what tourism can have on a community. I know Lake Tahoe is always, the lake imposed some very severe regulations years ago about how close they can build to that natural wonder. And Tahoe is very protective of its huge natural asset, the lake, and all of the little communities that surround it. And it doesn't make it easy for development sometimes when you do have these environmental impacts on top of your communities, especially if you're wanting to grow tourism. But it's the reality that you cannot jeopardize the one asset that is there that brings in the visitors, because if you do that, then doesn't matter how many hotels you build, how many boat ramps you build. If you've impacted the pure asset that attracts people, they won't come. Cultural. The commercialization of culture can undermine the soul of a tourist destination. Local traditions that share such a rich cultural heritage are reduced to wearing costumes sometimes, putting on acts for tourists in return for money. I don't see that as much because I'm working more in the real world communities, less of the fake tourism type of destinations. However, I know in Nevada City, they get a lot of tourists that come up from the San Francisco area because a lot of people have relocated there and they have a lot of friends and family. And the locals don't like it. It imposes on them. They can't find a parking place. It's a very small town. It's metered parking. There's people walking all over. They don't really understand that all that tax revenue is being reinvested back into the community and their services, but it's an inconvenience. And so at one time, about 10 years ago, they actually started looking at developing some community events that cater to the locals. Sometimes I talk about that when I'm working with communities, is if you're in a truly tourist destination and your locals are not happy, let's look at, like in Hawaii, where they give locals a little bit of a discount for purchasing in the downtown area or in Lahaina. So anyways, the cultural can dilute, and if it becomes something that is so driven by tourists and our own community won't embrace it, it will have some impact. Cultural clashes. Tourists often lack respect for local traditions and culture, refuse to follow local dress standards, get drunk in public, or behave rudely or inappropriate toward locals. So we can have that issue. Right now, we're not seeing it. We're seeing it through the protests, but we're not really seeing it because so much of it is sheltered in place. The service economy, a disadvantage is although jobs are created by tourism, they're often not the highest paid jobs. And so these are low wages, low skilled workers. Where is the prospect for advancement or promotion? And that is a service economy. And restaurants are a service-based business. And a lot of servers, restaurants are taking much better care of their staff, but it is the truth. Up in Truckee, which is primarily a visitor's mecca, the workforce can't find housing. They can't afford housing there. It's just, they've been priced out. It's a lot of second homes. So often the disadvantage of a economy driven by tourism is that it, you know, it displaces the local workforce to be able to actually live there. I know over in Idaho, in Sun Valley, and in Ketchum, they are, you know, have done for the last 10 years robust workforce housing, building workforce housing, because you don't want to lose your workforce. And if they can't live in a place and they have to commute for an hour, it's not going to be a viable workforce. So that is a disadvantage. Seasonal fluctuations. Don't need to talk to anybody about that. It's very common in our very four strong seasons of seasons, you know, summer, fall, winter, and spring. Out here in Arizona, we're in an opposite season. Summer is our low season, and then we get the monsoons. We're winter, January, February, March, and April, right before COVID hit, and right in the peak of our spring training, devastating. So seasonal fluctuations can depend upon where you're located. Down in Southern California, they're a little more evened out versus up in Northern California, where you may get that huge winter storm that shelters everybody in place because they want to enjoy the one day of snow, and you got the kids home. So anyway, seasonal fluctuations, and some areas can be, you know, inundated with visitors during busy times and then virtually deserted for many months. And a lot of our seasonal mountain communities are very aware of that. This is why it's so impactful right now, because the summer season is when many of our seasonal businesses make their money. And if there's no visitors, nobody traveling, it's going to be hard to make it through the winter. We're reinventing ourselves. So I'll be talking a bit about that in the strategies. That comes down to the next one, imbalance funding. Money can end up being directed to tourist areas when it could be used more effectively somewhere else in the other area. The locals who don't live in a specific tourist area miss out and suffer relative decline. So imbalance funding, often I see that some communities, and I see we're going to, take the TOT, transient occupancy tax, and don't reinvest it back into their visitor outreach programs and centers and use it for other things. And so that's an imbalance of funding. And then tourism dependency. We have all our eggs in one basket. We talk all the time about diversifying your economy, especially in rural communities. So if you have one, and we're feeling this greatly in all urban and rural communities, with our attractions closed down, with no visitors traveling, with a shelter in place, with many of our locals working from home. So, tourism dependency, I would like to have that right now is a problem instead of a pandemic. And it's going to be a slow climb coming out of our tourism. We're going to see probably opportunity coming from more day trips and more people taking trips in the car. Okay, I think with that, did we have a question, Linda? Oh, Rosa had to jump off for dinner for the kids, and she'll be watching. Okay, So Rose is not there. So Linda, did you have
I'm
any
sorry,
questions?
Lani. I was speaking to you for quite a while there, and I had my mic turned off. So, so forgive me while I'm talking to myself. I'm thinking, oh, she knows I'm speaking, and she doesn't. So yes, what we will continue this recording and
Okay.
jump in and catch the recording. Thanks, Lani.
Okay. Thanks, Linda. Glad you're still there with me. Okay, so what are some strategies for repositioning a seasonal tourist business during the COVID-19? And I really worked on this because I really want to give you a variety of strategies, and you're probably doing all of them because right now everybody's in survival mode and we're just taking what we're learning and we're applying it, which I love. Not easy to do, to pivot in less than 2 months when our whole world is upside down. So first of all, invest your time and leverage all of the opportunities that are available to your business, that you're eligible for or being offered. And right at the top are loans. The PP, the protection, paycheck protection loan, there's still dollars there. If you haven't taken advantage of that, look at that opportunity. State of California has some opportunities if you weren't eligible for the PPP loan or the economic injury disaster loan. There's still some funding out there. Work with your SBDC advisor. Plug in to see what's available. Do the hard work of putting the paper together. These are loans, but they are loans that are there for you to leverage, to take advantage of, so you can pay your employees, pay your workforce, pay your lease, and be prepared for when you're reopening. They're there for campgrounds, for resorts, for all types of businesses. And then there's going to be regional and even local and industry-specific grants and loans. So as the dollars start to trickle down from the federal through the CARE Act down into communities, they're going to be looking at how to best use those. Be prepared. Get your financials in order. You need to leverage all the opportunities. Then the webinars. Use this time to educate, to learn, to understand how to do social media, how to build shop commerce if you want to do shop on Facebook, or build an e-commerce site with Spotify or any of those other type of programs that are out there. Understand how to negotiate if you need to for your lease. Get familiar with how to do a cash projections to see where you sit. We are offering in the NorCal network across our 17 counties lots of different webinars, lots of educational opportunities, and most of them are free. And Linda will let you know about how to access those. So plug into that. Plug into the advising. If you're not using the Small Business Development Center advising that's available and you're depending on someone else, great. If that's your CPA, if that's your bookkeeper, if that's your bank, that's your insurance agent, it takes a village right now. So just make sure you're leveraging your opportunities, and then look for those free places to cross-promote your business. Make sure you're leveraging all the free listings. Update that. Make sure your Google My Business is updated. Look at your Yelp and your review sites. Just leverage all of those opportunities and look for those free places where you can promote your business. The second area is train and upskill your staff. I know that if you've applied for a PPP loan, paycheck protection loan, and you were given that, part of the forgiven portion is they have to continue to use those dollars at a certain percentage back into maintaining your workforce during your closure. So take the time to cross-train them, whether they're plugging into webinars, helping them learn how to communicate and sell remotely. It is not firsthand for a lot of our service-based businesses. We're people. And remotely, there's a skill. What tools do you have in place for them to be able to comfortably address questions and sell remotely? Best practices, you have those in place. What's their virtual office appearance? Make sure it supports your brand. Remember, doing virtual meetings, we're letting people into our private domain. So there's a sensitivity there. What's your script for handling issues? What flexibility do they have to be able to make some decisions if they're asked those questions? And then train and make sure you train them with the new protocols and guidance when you will be required when you're reopened. My 24-year-old daughter works for a festival company, and she's been working remotely since March 17th, and not easy. Immediately had to go into fielding calls about all of the postponements from the festival, from the large events that they handle. She works for AEG, huge, handles all the sporting goods, sporting events every day. And they set her up. She's got the training. She has a script. They have Monday meetings where they report in. She responds to how she responded to the calls. She gets rewarded for that. So the same can go for you, especially if you're a seasonal-based business and you're looking at reservations. If you're pushing those out and they keep getting pushed out a little bit more, make sure you're reconnecting and your staff knows how to answer those questions, how to approach it, has that extraordinary customer service in place, because people do business with people they like. And it doesn't make any difference whether we're working virtually or we're working in person. So train them, take that time. Especially if you have them still sitting at home and you're paying for them through PPP, now's the opportunity. Cash is king. Just going to say it, and I'm going to say it, pretty clearly. You need to look at where your cash is. Don't be afraid of it. Dive in. How much is coming in? What are you expecting over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months to be revenue, including every revenue source that you have and or are considering. Dive deep into your expenses. Prioritize key vendors. Look at offering incentives to create cash flow. A lot of hotels started this, I noticed, when my husband works for Marriott. He's furloughed, probably furloughed till October. So have him around all the time to cook for me now. Anyways, a lot of hotels offer, if you pay now, a discounted price, or if you pay when you arrive. Again, incentives, always, you have to balance it with what it does to the expense side. But what are those incentives if you keep your resort reservation for 2021 because you missed 20 because it was in June or July, but if you push it out to 2021, give them an extra 2 days at no cost. There's a place in Idaho that I visit, and when we rent the house, if we rent it for a week, we get the 7th day free. It's like free money to us, right? So now's the time to look. If you're needing to generate cash, look at those incentives to get it on the book so you can do your projections. Explore group purchases. Restaurants do this all the time. They will group with Cisco when they deliver, they'll do group purchases. Retailers can do that too. If you can't buy, if you're reopening and your inventory, you don't have cash right now on hand and you don't want to spend it all on inventory that's going to sit there until your visitors start coming, think about partnering with a non-competing business and purchase together. Talk with your financial partners. Talk with your SBDC advisor. Help them lay out your financial snapshot. And then get in the habit of looking at reviewing your financials on a daily basis. Make it a habit. Money doesn't, black and white, money doesn't lie. And right now, holding on to as much cash as you can is very key. Continue to follow your industry advice for data, protocols, and guidance through the pandemic. All of you belong. Most seasonal businesses have some type of industry that you belong to, whether that's the California Hotel and Lodging Association, which I used right here, whether it's a restaurant, California Restaurant Association, whether it's a regional industry support, whether it's for rafting and outdoor education, National Park Service, or your California State Parks, you're part of the park system, or Bureau of Land Management. They all have protocols in place for social distancing related to the pandemic, related to coronavirus. Follow them, look for the data, and then look how you're going to repackage that and make the changes within your own business. Now's the time to start thinking about that. What will be the changing in your campsite or your museum? We're dealing with it. There's going to be lots of case studies out there. There's already, and just stay ahead of the curve. If you're still closed by choice or not by choice, a lot of businesses are still apprehensive to completely open. Keep doing what you're doing to generate revenue. There's no right or wrong way to do it right now, and continue to explore new ways. If you're doing delivery and curbside, but you haven't got your e-commerce website up yet, explore what it's going to take to do that if you have time. Or explore what the free shop is now that Facebook just enrolled last week and is interfacing with Instagram because they own the same. You don't have to put every product and service on your site. You don't have to sell every single thing through online virtual, but look at how you can generate revenue. Can you keep shifting those reservations? Can you offer that incentive if they book now and pay half up now as a deposit, then you'll give them an extra day or two when they come? Can you sell your merchandise through the social commerce, or can you take it into another store? If you're a more remote location and you have some branded merchandise, maybe the visitor center will allow you to sell it there. Look at those ways. If you have a good database or email list, promote out what your merchandise that you have for sale, those are hats or cups. A lot of breweries have glasses, that you drink beer out of. And a lot of places have t-shirts that are sitting there that are in their little store. If you had a little store with your tourism-based business, get that store out where your customers are. If they're over on the coast, if they're in another state, use your email to get the word out and how they can purchase from you. If you're a resort or a camp and you want to link with a restaurant to provide delivery, a lot of pizza places do that with hotels. If your hotels are slowly opening up and your restaurant, make sure your menu's there in each of the rooms and that you can deliver. So lots of different ways. Think of 5 ways that you can generate revenue and write it down and figure it out. And we're there to help you. Step up your communication with your primary and secondary customers with all of your networks, whether that's your Instagram, your Facebook, your pick up the phone and call them. Nobody calls me except for my daughter, tell me her dog is sick or something, but I haven't had a call from any of the businesses and the restaurants and any of them that I have visited and sign up for the email marketing piece that also asks for phone number. I'm getting a lot of emails in my email box. I'm sure you are too, and you need to continue to do that. But think about how you can maybe make it a little bit more personal. Humanize the messages. Make it, if you're a small retailer and you know who some of your loyal customers are, call them, see what they may need. Do they have an event coming up a virtual event that they need to be fancy for, or a conference that they're going to be virtual and they want to, I don't know about you, but I haven't really worn anything in my closet for the last 12 weeks. So, but again, how do they need a new piece of jewelry? Do they need a gift, a special gift because our birthdays and anniversaries and all of those are still coming up? Do they have gift cards? So do they need a gift card? Could they buy a gift card now? A lot of communities are looking at buy gift cards now and give back later. Could you offer that to your customers if you have that information on how to promote it? Lay out a plan for what may be required by your industry for you to reopen, and develop a checklist. Really key. You need to kind of think it through. What's it going to take? What's the social distancing? What's it going to do to some of if you're bricks and mortar, to your checkout, to your employee room, to your dressing room. If you're a resort or you're an accommodation, what is that going to do to your lobby? How are they going to check in? It was interesting. I was at the airport today, and a lot of changing going on there. At Phoenix Airport, you have to wear a mask the minute you get out of your car. It's required, mandatory. And a lot of shifting. I saw on the floor a lot of decals on social distancing. They've removed, spread out the kiosks. They've downed some of the kiosks, so they're really, and the customer service at the checkout or the place where the luggage was checked, wow, over the top nice. So think about your industry for you to reopen and develop that checklist, training your workforce, making sure that they're safe, and then communicating it out to your customers of the changes you're making and how you're going to protect their health and safety. Stay connected and follow changes and plug into opportunities that are offered by your local, your regional and or state DMs, which are destination marketing organizations. Oh, there should be an O on there. DMOs, sorry. It's not direct message. DMOs, your convention and visitor bureaus and or your chamber. Up in Trinity County, Trinity County Chamber is the visitor outreach. Down in Reading, it's Visit Reading. Then you have visitor centers. Yes.
Can you tell me what, I know you said it's not DM, it's DMO. What does DMO stand for again?
Sorry, Destination Marketing Organizations.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you want to stay plugged into those because they are offering opportunities. They're trying to package and promote the areas that they and attractions and assets they represent, shifting from maybe more day trips or trips that people with cars. They have the infrastructure, a lot of the digital, they have email marketing. And this is an email, I worked up in Murphy's, California, a couple of years ago, was supposed to be there again, but we got it pushed back to 2021. And they're along Highway 49, very tourist destination. And they have, and it's all really grassroots, volunteer based, but they have this great email that came out about Memorial Day weekend and which shops and restaurants were open. And they didn't list everybody. They just down here visit Murphy's website to see the listing. But a beautiful quality picture, inviting people to come there, showing that it's there, it's open, and then a listing of who really is opening. And this is what your visitor bureau, your destination marketing organization, your chambers do. And then in a lot of visitor centers will also push out information. So stay plugged into them, support them, ask them if there's anything they need from you. Do they need some quality content? Are they putting out an e-newsletter that you could use and promote the larger region? So really plug into that. Go to Visit California and check out their site. See Visit California. Know how to use these assets. Use this time to update. Oh, yes. You got another question?
Yes. I just was wondering, I wanted to share with you something that I've seen, and then perhaps you can give advice on it. One of the things I've found very helpful is if you're going to visit a place, update your website with your current hours. I went across town the other day to go to a place that I thought was open, and it wasn't. The parking lot was closed. And I understand lately we've had a couple, we need to close early because there's some bad things going on and, curfews and that sort of thing. I understand. But if you're not open or if you have special drive up only hours, I had a situation the other day where I looked online for a very major company that we have an office in town. And I looked online, and to me, it looked like it was open. So I went there to find out that it was closed. And there was a sign on the door, and the sign on the door led me to believe that if I went back home and I placed my order, it could be something that someone would meet me somewhere and have a pickup parking spot. So I went home, I went on their website, and I did all that. And then it still said I have to ship it. And I thought, that's really weird. Their window, it was so conflicting. Their window said, here's the parking. But then when I put in my zip code, the closest shop that showed up was an hour away, meaning my local location's not open. But I just have seen the other side of that, which is such clarity. When I went to Costco, I knew ahead of time, because their magazine talked about, for me to get in, I had to have a mask. And when you show up prepared, it's so much better than when you show up and you get turned away.
Yeah, and that is so true. So take example of what our larger businesses are doing to keep their customers informed, and smaller businesses trying to, follow that trend or follow those processes. And I talk about that all the time, about going across all of your marketing, digital marketing, your website, your social platforms, and your Google Your Business, wherever people are touching to find out what's going on. And it's hard sometimes for small businesses, especially if they don't have privy to the back end of their website, or was an oversight, or they don't have their staff doing it. And let's say they had a person doing their social media, and that person isn't there anymore. So they don't know how, they don't have the access to their Facebook page or their Instagram. But yes, so important, because there's so many that are doing it right. And we're trying to support our local small businesses, and we're going out of our way to do that. But if you make it more difficult and confusing, we'll give you one or two chances with it, but then it's going to become, we're going to move on. So yes, when I say update all your marketing, look across any place that a person, one of your customers or potential individual may touch to find out what's going on, and try to keep it current. Even in worst case scenario, if you can't keep it, just say call please for updates, and make sure you answer the phone. And then, so anyways, yes, that's a really great point. And that's low hanging fruit. That's something we can do right away. It's going to be very key when we start to really talk about what is required when they come, that we are going to have different hours. A lot of the businesses that I'm advising is like, it's okay to have limited hours. It's okay not to be open as much as you were, because you're slowly bringing your workforce in. You don't have all the tables. You don't have all of the merchandise. You don't have all of your assets open yet. It's okay to shift the hours. You just have to communicate it clearly out there to your customers, so it doesn't happen like what had happened to you. And independent businesses, not a lot of them have websites, so they're really dependent on their Facebook. And if they have that about them buried and it's not right up front, their hours, and making it more difficult, that you're not always, here is where you can, shameless, push it out as much as you have to about your new hours. Once a week, twice a week, push it out. Thank customers. Say, this is the new way you can do business with us. List it. Put it in your banner across your Facebook page or on your Instagram profile. Don't make us guess. Put it right on your homepage as it comes straight across the banner, because that's the information we need to see right now.
What I'm noticing right now, Lani, is some of the companies that had specials. For instance, the Reading Chamber of Commerce has a special going on right now that you can join the Reading Chamber for free. And they've had it put on for a while, and they always warned it's going to wrap up soon. I just heard that ends on Friday.
Oh.
There's nothing like a deadline to get people to get things done. So sometimes you can just give someone a deadline of, we're offering this particular discount that's going to end on this date, and it'll just kind of get some foot traffic back for them.
Yeah, the urgency. We don't want to miss out, especially if there's something free. And that's a classic example when I was talking about cash is king. Don't pay for any subscription, or get rid of the subscriptions that you never use. And that may not be so much me, because I'm not a real big app and subscription user, except for Hulu and my, streaming. But subscriptions and memberships, lots of flexibility right now. Take advantage of that, of a support organization that adds value to your business. And if they're offering something like that, take advantage of it, because is it good for 1 year, Linda?
When they join, the membership is for 12 months.
What a deal.
And it's
What
great.
a deal.
And there are some deals out there. So your business might even be able to get some deals right now for the services you need.
Yep, exactly. So in closing, 2 slides, just going to walk through some questions for you as you think about developing a 3-month plan, review it in 6 months, and again in 12 months. And things are changing so fast or slow, depending on what side of the coin you're on. So I don't, say don't go way out, and this is where we as advisors can help you develop the plan. But the questions you have to have answered and be prepared to answer are, when can you open? Or when do you want to open? Because your opening plan, whether you're going to open 25% of your business, and you're going to open it, part of it, and then it's only going to generate 25% of my revenue, or I'm going to be fully open and operated by September, but I probably only anticipate 50% of my customers coming back. Those all impact your financial picture. So when can you open or get back to full operation? And how much business will come in during that period of time? In the next 3 months, if you're we're talking about tourism-based businesses, you may not see much business come up because the shelter in place is still in place. If that's lifted in July and you open up and you actually are offering some reservations for the fall season, but people are still, kind of mentally unprepared, ready to venture out, you may see only 25% of your beds filled or your campsites filled. So you have to prepare for that for the first 3 months. Maybe in 6 months, you'll see a bump up. And that's how you start to strategize your revenue. What changes will you need to implement across all aspects of your business? There's a lot of discussion about how, people are more comfortable working at home, like the remote. We're more productive. We can do a lot more and be more effective and attend 10 meetings instead of 2 meetings, 2 in-person meetings. We can attend 10 Zoom meetings in a day. I'm going to tell you, I'm mentally drained by that. But so are you going to bring part of your workforce back in person to help support your business, and part of your sales team or your reservation team will stay and work remotely? So what changes will you touch point? When and how will you bring back your workforce? We have a great webinar that was done by, through our NorCal channel about bringing back that workforce, preparing them to be trained not only for the protocols, but how to protect themselves, and then how to communicate. And I'm doing a workshop in a couple weeks on customer loyalty and that whole shift of how this is going to change. What's going to happen to your hard costs or other expenses, especially if you have a PPP loan or an idle loan? How are you using those dollars? You're going to need to repay back some of them. What other hard costs do you have? So you want to think about that in your planning process. What products, services, and amenities are you planning to continue offering? What new incentives or initiatives will you be introducing? How will these impact your bottom line? The hotels and resorts are coming and opening up slowly over here in Arizona, but they're not opening up everything. A couple of the pools are open because they can manage those, but maybe there's no poolside service. So hotels are, to keep it clean. So how are you going to use their soaps? Will it be something that you're going to promote out there until they can't have those? I don't know about campgrounds. As the social distancing by nature is easy because we've always had campgrounds that had distance between to protect people in that aspect. So what new initiatives are you going to be introducing? Are you going to, in 6 months, be introducing a more robust e-commerce site or a more robust self-reservation site? Or are you going more digital with some of your other services? And then how would that impact the bottom line? The more digital you go and more virtual you go, what does that mean to your payroll? Is it up? Is it down? Sometimes we invest in digital and it might be a bump in our bottom line because we have to pay for the service. We have to pay for having it online for the pictures. Or are you training a staff to be that? There's a little business in Grass Valley that just launched, been around 35 years, third generation business, Olive Shop and Toys, never had a website. She just launched it. Did it in 4 weeks with one of her employees, and she's not selling everything. She has thousands and thousands and thousands of gifts. She's selling the top sellers right now: puzzles, wind chimes, candy, type of game and activities for kids. Took her a whole week to figure out, learn it, invest in the infrastructure, invest in the time. How did it impact her bottom line? Probably had some expenses, but she's hoping in the long term, it's going to be another way that people can purchase from her. Get in touch with your primary market, your secondary market. You need to dial that in. How are you reaching them? Are you telling them? Bring them along. Keep in touch with them. Let them know what your plans are. Let them know when you're open or not, how you deliver your products or services. And then what is your digital marketing, social and traditional marketing strategy? So all of that in a 3-month plan. Look at the revenue coming in, how you're going to, when you're going to reopen, if you are, what percentage of your business is going to be coming back, how you're going to continue to communicate with your customers, how you're going to make the changes, how you're going to reintroduce your workforce. And that's your little mini 3-month plan. Maybe bump it up to 6 months if you feel like the 3 months you're just not going to be quite ready. You're going to miss the summer season, or you're going to partially open up and grab as much summer season as you can, but you're going to bump up your fall season. So those are the seasonal those are some of the repositioning strategies for your seasonal tourism business. Right now, we're not talking anything about weather. We're not talking any natural disaster. We're talking about a pandemic. So I want to just close real quick. Here's a quote. And, you know, quotes are different because people interpret them as they are feeling at the time when they read it. And this I thought was kind of key when I was putting this webinar together. Don't give up and always keep on believing in your product. Because if you don't, how can you make others believe in it? I believe in our small businesses. I believe in our small and large tourism-based destinations. I believe that you had no control over this. Be kind to yourself. We know that you are working as hard as you can, and we really just want you to take advantage of any of the types of services and resources that we offer. So with that said, do I have any questions? And you can type those right in the chat box.
And I have some I would like you to address, because I know what's tricky about when you train on such a broad topic is the person who runs a hotel and the person that runs a gift shop, they all have such different needs for you, where if you met with each one of those individually, you would be able to spend time with them just on their specific needs. So can you talk about, Lani, what it's like when people meet with you? Maybe they're watching this video and they're thinking, I don't want to bother Lani. I can't afford it. What would you say? They may not know how SBDC works.
Sure. I love working with people and helping them develop their business concept, and going in and finding what their struggles are or where their opportunities are. There is no fee for working with me through the SBDC office. We work for can only provide advising for for-profit businesses. We cannot provide advising for nonprofit businesses, but there's other resources out there. So typically in my hour session or hour and a half session, I just have, talk about your business, get me acquainted with what you do. And then we go and dive into specific areas that they're struggling with or the opportunities they see. And I try to focus in, we kind of start like at a higher level, but then really drill down into some doable tasks or doable things they can do when they go back to their business to move the needle, move it slowly. Pivoting, the new term. Businesses, we used to call it business planning, now it's business pivoting. We've had to pivot very, very fast, and it takes a while to catch everything up, and we get overwhelmed. So I help my clients not feel overwhelmed, provide some sound advice, help them link into resources that are low cost or free, that are available to them to support their needs at that time. So I try to really kind of be very specific to some areas that they can work on between when I meet with them that day. And then I always say, we're here for a follow-up, advising as often as you need it, as long as you're showing progress. And most of the time, I try to help them feel positive, but not with, Pollyanny, not with rose-colored glasses.
Perfect. So there's so much help out there for people when they watch these videos and they think that's all they're getting. There's a lot more available to them. Is there a typical amount of time, or I should say frequency, if someone were to meet with you and you evaluate where they are, would you want to see them again in a week? What's that time frame? What should they have in their mind?
Well, it depends on what we're working on. Most of the time, if we're working on planning or financials or developing their marketing strategy, I'll give them a little time. But if we're diving into, let's say we want to, really go into their Facebook page and develop, make sure they're doing all the features, and we're going to want to develop a content calendar, and then we want to link that to Instagram. I'll probably want to work with them over a certain period, like maybe every week. Most of my clients I meet monthly with, only because I was always just over there in the area monthly, and I would leave them with a nice long laundry list of things they had to do. But I usually always offer that if they need another appointment, they could always call me. If they get to a point where and I get a few emails from clients, they say, hey, this is my URL, does it sound okay to you? And I'll help them through the email or through phone. It really is, as long as they show some progress and that they kind of maybe followed through with a few of the recommendations, and they said, I love Facebook now, that content is coming really easy, but now I want to do Instagram. So, okay, let's talk about that at our next session. When would you like to see me again? When do you want to meet? Or we may need to refer them to another advisor. We have lots of advisors that have lots of different expertise. If they need to be more productive with their time, I may refer them to you, Linda. Or if they need QuickBooks, we have the fabulous Rebecca advisor. So it just depends. So there's really no specific period. We just need to make sure that they are making some kind of progress, some kind of economic impact. And typically they do it.
To be able to come to someone like you, that two things you told me just now that really stick out for me, because I am a business owner, is for people to go to someone who already knows the tools to use. Mm-hmm. And in certain situations will actually teach you how to use them, which is for a lot of people, I know I need to do this and I don't know how to do it. And to meet someone who helps in both of those areas is truly a major support to the business owner.
Yes, absolutely. And especially when, because right before the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of changeover of businesses, a lot of legacy businesses, older business owners passing it to their family or, retiring, new businesses coming in, new entrepreneurs opening up storefronts, starting and launching their business. And they do things very differently. And so the younger, more entrepreneurs may be very comfortable with digital, but they don't really understand how to network, or they don't really understand how to do more traditional advertising, where the more seasoned business owner is less apt maybe than to understand the digital marketing piece. So really helping the business owner, usually that's who we're meeting with, and telling them, you don't have to be everything to everybody. If you have a staff person that's in charge of this, bring them with you next time and we'll walk through with them. Because as long as we have the owner's permission, we can also work with their workforce, their staff, if they're a specific area.
You said bring them with them. Now you're doing a lot of your training on Zoom right now, aren't you?
Oh, all Zoom. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well,
but someday we'll be in person again.
Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I will let you wrap up, and then I'll have a little announcement when you're finished.
I'm good. So that was the end. I really want to thank everyone for attending the webinar. And I hope that I provided some information about how you could help reposition your tourism and seasonal business. And bless all of your hearts. That's all I can say.
I just wanted to follow up on something Lani referred to earlier, for me to let you know how you can find out about the webinar. So I went out to the website. It's sbdcsc.org. And then in the menu, you can choose services and then training and workshops. And within there, you'll find a link to the calendar where you can see which workshops are scheduled. Click on the particular training, and that will give you your link to register. And by registering, for those of you that registered for this, many cases we record the webinar, and if we do, you will get that in the follow-up email. Emily is going to pull together the follow-up email for this webinar in about 1 or 2 days, and actually hopefully maybe Monday, because we don't need to work on Saturday. She will pull together an email for you where you'll be able to look at this recording. And here's what's really important. She's also going to send you a survey. And if you could please, please, please fill that survey out for us. That survey shows those companies that are funding us, shows them that we're giving you value and you get to decide, is it worth it? Is it not? Let them know what you think. And we also want your feedback. We would like to know, what do you think of these classes? How can we make them better? And are there any classes that you would like that you don't see in the calendar? So thank you so much for joining us here at the Shasta-Cascade SBDC. We appreciate you spending the time, and please reach out to Lani if she can help you. You can set up a scheduled time with her and let her give you one-on-one advising on whatever topic you need. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Lani.